Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some more Pittsburgh Steelers preview and prediction for this Sunday Week 15 game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about it. Before we start, if you guys could like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Would really appreciate that. So Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Battle of the Keystone State, Sunday afternoon, Pittsburgh on the road. We'll start with the Eagles offense. Eagles team overall, winners of 9 straight. We talk about what does Pittsburgh have to defend. It's everything, but it has to start somewhere, and it begins with the run game with Saquon Barkley and the offensive line and the bread and butter of the Eagles, leading the NFL by far in rushing yards and rushing attempts this season. And how do you stop that is a much more interesting and important question than recognizing stopping it. I think Pittsburgh really has to almost sell out here to stop the run. There's going to be a consequence to that in the pass game. I understand that, but if Saquon Barkley gets going, it's going to be a really long day for the Steelers defense and the team overall. And so I think a couple things you do, obviously you got to tackle well, you got to wrap up, you got to rally. It's going to be an 11-man job to contain Barkley. I don't think you go for the forced fumble when you tackle Saquon Barkley, even if you're the second man in. Typically the rule is first man wraps, second guy goes for the punch out. Not against Barkley, not in this case, because you just need to get that guy on the ground, tackle him, and minimize his ability to wear you down and to break tackles and move the pile forward and all those kinds of things behind a really good offensive line. They got big guys up front. Mekhi Becton's really reinvented himself at right guard. Lane Johnson, a future Hall of Famer at right tackle. Mayotta at left tackle is a hulking figure. Dickerson's a really big guard. I think Cam Jurgens has done a nice job replacing Kelsey at center. So they're a multiple run scheme. Of course, they have the quarterback run threat, but they run a lot of power. The center will pull. The guard can pull. They run power on the first play of the game. The last 2 weeks, they run bash concepts where it's the guards will pull, say, to the right, and the back will go left, and the quarterback can keep to the right. And so there's a lot going on there. They're pretty creative with their split zone in terms of some of the lead block motion that they like to use, which has become more in vogue this year. So bottom line is, and of course you had the tush push in those short yardage situations. Jalen Hurts has 34 carries, needing 1 yard this year. That's tied for the most in football entering week 15. You combine all of that, you have to sort out the run. And for Pittsburgh, unfortunately, they're missing Larry Ogunjobi, which is a bit more manageable, but to have Deshaun Elliott out of this game with a hamstring injury is really crushing against the number 1 rushing attack, your box safety, an elite tackler, a physical guy. Man, you talk about George Pickens a lot in the absence and how that will hurt Pittsburgh's offense, and it certainly will, but Elliott is almost right up there defensively, I think, in this one. How will Pittsburgh compensate? I thought Eric Rowe would be more in the mix. I'm not hearing a lot about him getting elevated. We'll see by tomorrow. Will it be Minka playing in the box more because he's also a very good tackler? That may be what Pittsburgh turns to. The other safety, will it be a combination of DeMonte Casey and Cam Sutton? We'll have to wait and see. But I really think, not that you ever want to be in a week without a guy like Elliott the way he's played this year, but to miss him in this one is critical. And then after all of that, there's a whole pass game to defend. And Jalen Hurts has not played as well this year, it seems to be, as maybe some past years, but there are still some big-time weapons, starting with A.J. Brown. And Brown had only 4 targets last week in that close win over Carolina. He seemed pretty unhappy with things post-game. I'm going to guess they're going to try to get Brown involved early. They have an RPO game that's effective. They run these glance routes with A.J. Brown, these slant routes. You get him on the move. He's got 2 games against Pittsburgh, and he has put up big numbers in those games. Something like, I think, maybe 12 catches for, I think it's like 300-plus yards and 4 touchdowns. Of course, had that 3-touchdown performance in that 2022 meeting with the Eagles against Pittsburgh, and so you're going to have to really find a way to minimize him, probably without a ton of help in rundown situations and early downs and pass downs. You may be able to mix coverage and give more help and more bracket and that type of stuff, but because you're so focused on the run game, it's going to really be up to Joey Porter Jr. to try to handle him in the pass game one-on-one. Flipping over to the defense, and the Eagles have been stout there too. It's a strong defensive line, especially along the interior. Jalen Carter, the second-year guy from Georgia, he's been excellent. He's playing 83% of their snaps. So he's a guy that is big and physical and athletic and just does not leave the field for a defensive tackle. And so how will the interior offensive line for Pittsburgh Zach Frazier and Carter is going to be a really interesting matchup. Same with McCormick. Got to get a push up front. Milton Williams has been a good D tackle for them too. Gets talked about less. He's got 5 sacks this season. That's more than Jalen Carter's 4.5. So they will use, kind of like the Bengals, to run these 5 down fronts, even these 6 down fronts. Zach Bond is an off-ball linebacker, but he's pretty versatile. He was more of an edge guy at Wisconsin and kind of play on-ball, off-ball, and so they can really kind of mix up their fronts. They can pinch their D tackles in, play these bare fronts where they're covering up the center and the guards. I think Pittsburgh can't go quite as heavy as they would like to. I think more 11 personnel to get the Eagles out of that 5 down front and kind of spread things out a bit, run more perimeter on the edges, outside zone. I know the toss game can be hit and miss, but I think you probably want to try to get the ball on the outside more than trying to run it into the teeth of that Eagles front, because I think you're going to not have the success that you're looking for. In the pass game with the pass rush, if there is a bit of a weakness, they're not blitzing that often. They're not getting home as often with their rush. They may be lacking a true elite edge guy. They have Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat, and those guys have had success and certainly can be threats, but they're not quite as strong there. But overall, it's a really good secondary. Their corners don't pick off many passes. In fact, they have 0 interceptions from their cornerbacks this year, but they got a really good pair in the veteran Darius Slay and the rookie Quinyon Mitchell, and they're more man type of corners, and that kind of lends itself to fewer, interception opportunities. You're focused on the man, the receiver, not the ball. Without George Pickens, I think in this game, just globally, Terrell Austin, Mike Tomlin, and Arthur Smith really have to have good schemes. I think you're kind of outmatched from a talent standpoint, especially with the injuries Pittsburgh has. You better find some ways to scheme guys open and throw some different wrinkles offensively and defensively in this one to try to overcome that gap again when you're missing Pickens and Elliott and Ogunjobi. But with the Eagles, they have good scheme too. With Vic Fangio, their DC, they really mix things up. They play good match coverages. They throw a lot at you. They're not really we do this and do this only kind of thing. And so Russell Wilson really have to make some plays. Guys will have to make big plays in the pass game. I'm looking at Mike Williams, Calvin Austin in particular, to try to create the splash. Williams with his size, his contested catch ability, and Austin with his speed. One of those guys will have to step up. And then just briefly, special teams, it's been good in a lot of ways. It needs to be its A+ game in this one. The kick coverage game must be better. Probably going to boot the ball in the end zone a lot in this one, I'm guessing. But you got to try to gain an advantage somewhere by creating a turnover or a splash play to try to swing things in Pittsburgh's favor. The Eagles do a good job not beating themselves. I should have mentioned they only have 11 turnovers this year, 3 in their last 9 games, 0 in their last 4. And Pittsburgh is tied with Buffalo for the best turnover differential in football. They lead the league in takeaways. Can you try to win that gap? It'll be tough, but it'll be required to beat the Eagles. So for my prediction in this one, I'm going with the Eagles fairly comfortably. I am lacking confidence in this one as much as I've had in any game this year. I got Philadelphia winning this one 27-16 over Pittsburgh at home, hostile environment. And I just think, especially without George Pickens offensively, especially without Deshaun Elliott defensively, it becomes an even harder road and path for Pittsburgh to walk in this one. Is it impossible for the Steelers to win? No, of course not. And if they can try to set a good tone early, the Eagles are a slow starting team. They're really bad in the first quarter. Granted, Pittsburgh has not been much better, but they have been better. That'll kind of be the MO in this one and create some takeaways and splash on special teams. But I got the Eagles winning this one fairly comfortably, again, 27-16. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Drop your score prediction in the comments as well. Closer game, a Steelers win, or a Eagles blowout victory. Let me know what you think below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.